If you're listening to this right now and you've got a single location venue, or maybe you're only doing 20 weddings a year or 5 weddings a year, you might say, hey, I don't need QuickBooks, or I don't need a fancy software.
So I recently was having a conversation with someone and she's like, yeah, I paused it. I'm like, but you have a headache right now because you wanted to save $19 a month. So in a year, $300 that you can actually have wrote off so that you would make sure that your expenses don't fall through the cracks. And then you wouldn't be stressed out. So was that saving $300 worth it? And she's like, well, when you say it that way, I've had some people that will say, oh, that sounds like a big word. But that is really just what platform, what app, how do you do what you do? How do you serve your client? How do you help with informing your team members? How do you market to people? Like all of those things are intertwined to each other. It is until we take time to think about it, then it won't always make sense.
Welcome to the Venue RX. On this show, we document and share best practices around owning, operating, and managing world-class wedding venues.
What's up, everyone? Joanthan here with the Venue RX, and I am so pumped about this show today that we have for you. And the reason is because if you've heard me speak at all in the last, year, I have spoke almost exclusively on operationally focused topics. And I am really thrilled to have Jese Gray here on the show with me today. Jese, thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you for asking me, because often I feel like I'm the lone crusader out here in our industry trying to talk about this stuff. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to start having open conversation.
Awesome. Well, yeah, just like we said right before we popped on, it's kind of the like unsexy stuff, you know, especially in our industry, in the events industry, that if you can nail this stuff, maybe it's not sales, it's not marketing, but it is the meat and potatoes, the nuts and bolts of running a business. If you can nail that, you've got a great business on your hands, right?
Yeah, and it's actually tied into all of those parts, because I find that, of course, in the beginning, someone's trying to test out like proof of concept, but eventually at some point you start getting exhausted by all of the things like floating in the air. And it's like, okay, how do I get this organized so I can almost like rinse and repeat certain processes in our businesses? It takes us growing in like our leadership and awareness to understand when that is. Because for some people that never connects at all. But then at some point for others, it's like, okay, I know I have a great concept, but oh my gosh, I can't keep doing it this way. So that's when people start to explore. So processes, to be honest, can go across a lot of different lanes inside of our businesses, especially when we're trying to scale, because everyone has different goals in their business, like revenue, scalability, and things like that. Everyone's not trying to everyone's not really wanting to have a 7-figure business. Like they may say it, but they're really, not trying to. And that's fine. Nothing's wrong with that.
So Jese, I did want to ask you about that because I'm curious, someone might listen to this and say, gosh, I don't want to have a 7-figure business, or this is more of a lifestyle business for me. Do I still need SOPs, systems, policies, all of that? Or is that just kind of extra and cumbersome and they're not going to need it if they're not wanting to grow this gigantic business?
100%. I think what the biggest problem is that people wait too late in the game to actually start thinking about it, more or less than being present. Because even if it's a side business doesn't have to be mayhem. Have I ever really seen anyone that's in the event industry that's doing something on the side that has it together? No. 9% of the time, no. Like it's chaotic. And I always say about the event industry is that we see so many people at different stages of our business, everything being chaotic, and we think that it's normal. However, any other industry, if it ran with the level of chaos and disarray when we're actually organized, or like that's what we do, is like someone is a financial person that has horrible finances. Like you'd be like, how does that work? But that's exactly what happens in our industry. So it doesn't matter, in my opinion, if it's a small business, like if you're like someone is not trying to scale this massive company, it just means that if you're really solid on it, it will not feel like a strain. even if you just want it to be something for a short-term period, I think that that's the biggest thing that causes people to either quit something that is intended to just be for a moment, or it causes someone that is trying to grow a big business and they just feel burned out and then they walk away. It's never because of the service. It's because of how running the business doesn't bring them joy. And the reason why it doesn't bring them joy and it's not fun is because it's not organized. So if it was organized, it would be a lot more funner for them to do what they do.
I love this so much because you're on point with this. And not only that, but people sometimes get into our industry because it's going to be a retirement business, or it's going to be, like you said, a side business, a little side hustle, a hobby, passion project, all of those words I've heard in association with whether it's florals, planning, design, all of that. But you're totally right. It ends up giving you all this pain if you don't have those systems in place. So before we get into the nuts and bolts of how to set these things up in your business and all of that, where did your passion for this come? Like, how did you get started in this industry?
So I've had my own event business now since 2010. I actually went to school. I was going to go down the path of being in culinary. But then life things, and I've worked in the floral design. So I have a lot of different backgrounds within the event industry. And then when I had the opportunity to start my business, it was like, oh, okay, like this makes sense to do. And then fast forward to the pandemic, like I had a really big team of different vendors. We were in different cities and states. We had some really ambitious goals, which I had started the company with thinking about. But what happened was that when the pandemic happened, I shifted some, but then someone on my team, so it was not me, my vendors said to me, Jesse, a lot of this is a downtime. You should take this time to start teaching other people because a lot of people don't know what you help us with learning. And I was completely oblivious to what was going on. And so I actually used a lot of I went to college for a business degree. So I learned some stuff, and then having the ability to talk and touch in different parts of the event industry, I then just decided to start using what I learned, what I kind of geeked out on, to help us grow, to now help other people with being able to grow and scale their business. So I don't personally go to any of our events anymore. I haven't really gone to any of our events since 2018. My team handles all of that stuff. So I had to grow in my leadership, think about how I make the process easier for them, and figure out what component of the business I want to do. Because I think sometimes we don't always understand, there are different parts of a business and you don't have to be great at all of them, but you do need to be able to invest in someone that's going to be able to help you on the areas that you don't do well in. Or that might not bring you joy. So I like to geek out on technology and systems and leadership and reading and all those types of things. And my people like to create. So I let them create and I just help support them with doing what they want to do. And we both make money together. And that's just kind of how I approached it in my business. And the pandemic made me sit and think and talk to people. And I didn't realize that there was this huge gap in understanding how to run a business in the event industry and all the different facets of it. So until I started talking to people, I was like, wow, I know it's really bad out here. So people with some amazing brands, some amazing concepts, but they don't know how to run businesses. And it's almost like, do I really need to do that? Which any other industry, they don't think that way. It's only in ours that we just kind of feel like if I ignore it, it will go away. And then we just run ourselves ragged. I've had chefs that passed out going grocery shopping because they were running themselves sick. I've seen where people that I haven't worked with, where all of a sudden I'm sorry, I'm in an emergency room. So all the events I had scheduled, please, and having to do that. And it's always due to someone running themselves sick. And that is because they don't organize their business to run and work the way they really want it to work.
Hey there, thanks so much for watching or listening. I wanted to take a moment and share about Common Sense Events. Common Sense Events is my company that professionally manages and operates venues all across the United States, and we're looking to work with a couple more venues this year. If you own a venue in Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, North Carolina, we are looking to work with you. Our company comes in and takes care of the marketing, the sales, the operations, we hire all of the employees, we manage all the employees, and primarily our agreements are based off of revenue share models. So it's a very affordable way to have your venue professionally managed. And this is especially good if you're thinking about retiring, selling your venue, but maybe you don't want to sell the land, or you're looking for another management option than you currently have in place. If you're interested in this, please reach out by email at venues@cseventservices.com, or you can also click the link in the description of this video or podcast. We'd love to hear from you and look forward to seeing if there's a way for us to serve you. My personal experience with this was there's almost writing or listening who's been in the event industry, you're going to know what I'm talking about. There's like this high that you get, you plan and then you get to the event, and when you get to the event, it's go time, right? And you're just kind of in problem solving mode, whatever's coming your way, you're trying to handle. And then afterwards you get this little bit like on the drive home or whatever it is, you're like, oh man, I could do this better. I could do this better. I got to fix this. Oh, that was crazy. I didn't want to do that ever again. Like when you get all of the emotions from it, but then if you don't make some changes, you just kind of get down and then you get on that high again for the next event and then down on that. And you just are riding this roller coaster. That's so true. That's so accurate.
100%. And then what happens is like, I know the beauty about us being in the industry is that we learn how to problem solve, but what I often am looking at from a system standpoint is how do you not have to? What can you do to make sure that you get what you need to get and communicate what you need to communicate with your client before the day so that you're not finding out that they have a 360 photo booth and then they put you like by a closet. Like, why wasn't there communication? Or like I've had where bridal makeup artists, they're trying to figure out what time the photographer is going and they having to chase after the bride to get that from the photographer because the photographer don't communicate. And what's happening is that we're creating long suffering to each other. And then we get frustrated, like, why the client don't know? Why would the client know? You're the expert. They don't know.
Exactly. So I want to get into some of kind of like the nitty gritty of systems and things like that. But before we do, what does your company do today?
Yeah. So what we specifically do is that we work with anywhere between solopreneurs to boutique agencies with creating their process development, figuring out what is the best CRM, so your client management system, that you're able to help with the relationship with how you execute your event from the business side, figuring out what type of tech will be the best for them, depending on what goals they have, and just creating it too so they can grow into it. Because what some people do is that when they even choose a CRM is that they're fixing it for now, but then they can't ever grow. And I always hear people like, yeah, I want more clients, but you don't have the capabilities from a systematic way to actually even execute them without the quality falling through the cracks. Because even when I've had caterers like, oh, I can do 3 in a day. And I'm like, please don't do that with my event. Like, unless I know they have like a solid team of people, I'm like, as much as you may not intend to mess up my event, you will, because you don't have the structure to be able to handle 2-3 events in a day without 1 or 2 of them being impacted because one runs over. So like understanding that you may want more clients, but how are you even creating the space for more to exist? And more is really, for a lot of people, even if it was 5% more, most companies, when I talk to them, they can't even handle 5% more from a system standpoint. So when I'm working with them, I'm like, think about how do we use whatever's happening now that have been learning lessons, how do we correct it, give you the space so that when you do start getting floods of people, let's say holiday season time or pool party and graduation time, because often what people are thinking about is how do I manage it when it's slow? I don't care how it works when it's slow, because honestly, like that doesn't mean anything to me, because once you start getting multiple requests and you can't remember if you sent a proposal to someone or if you even have a booking like all of those things, like I feel like, yeah, I like to text everybody. How? Why would you do that? Like, that's just going to be so many mistakes. So when I work with people, my whole purpose is to challenge their ways of thinking, because what happens is that I want for everyone to have success, whatever that looks like. but the system has to match what that level of success looks like. That's point blank simple, because I love our industry. I think we're the most creative. I think we're hardworking. I think that it's very labor intensive. Like, nothing about what we do is easy. It's not like, the person that comes up with the ebook and they're like, I don't know, what price do I want? Like, we have real costs. We have real expenses. We have to have certain things in place for us to do what we want to do. So I think that I want for people to understand how to have the kind of business that they want, not just from the front end side, but the back end is what allows them to really do what they need to do. So I'm always challenging how they're doing things, how they can make it run better, how can they build up the trust with their clients, so that they can really, truly even get higher revenue on bookings. Like, I had someone today send me a menu of one document was 10 pages. Another one's, I'm not reading that. I'm sorry. Like, I opened it up. I saw 10 loading. I was like, closed out. Why would you send a client a menu of 10 pages? I'm not going to choose that. Like, it's too complex. And again, these are the things about understanding our client process, understanding our clients' behaviors. So, like, often when I even hear people that complaining about their clients, it's because they're making it complex. So their clients, you open that little window and the client's going to like walk right through it, So it's like, how do you make it easy for people to make decisions, for them to sign contracts, to pay you, to communicate the things that you need to communicate, so that if there are any misunderstandings, they're very minute and they're not happening the day of, because you've done what you needed to do to protect yourself, to protect your brand, so you're not having to give refunds. So that's what I like to work with people on, is like thinking it through from just like, this is a passion project. How do I actually run a business, not look like an entrepreneur, but actually run my business like I'm a business owner?
I love it. I love it. So I want to come back to kind of what you do. I want to just touch on something you said, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. There's levels to success, right? And your systems have to scale through those levels of success. And I'm paraphrasing you, obviously, but I think that's so true, because right now the business that I run with just about 9 venues looks very different than when we were at 5 venues, looks very different than when we were at 2 venues. We've had to change our processes around the CRM systems we use, around how we do pretty much every single portion of the company to scale with that.
Yes.
And also, we're spending more money today on those same systems and on all of the stuff that we did. And so if you're listening to this right now and you've got a single location venue, or maybe you're only doing 20 weddings a year or 5 weddings a year, and you're a planner, that's awesome. You might say, hey, I don't need QuickBooks, or I don't need, a fancy software like Jess is about to tell us about, right? But if you don't plan for that success, like you said, that success is going to get you and find you wanting in your systems.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like, even when you mentioned QuickBooks, I recently was having a conversation with someone and she's like, yeah, I paused it. I'm like, but you have a headache right now because you wanted to save $19 a month. So in a year, $300 that you can actually have wrote off, so that you would make sure that your expenses don't fall through the cracks, and then you wouldn't be stressed out the way. I'm like, so was that saving $300 worth it? And she's like, well, when you say it that way. And that's what I think too is for us, because she's a caterer. I was like, if you got the self-employed app, you could have had the mileage tracking. I'm like, because I'm sure if you're keeping track of paper receipts, you're not keeping track of your mileage. So you're losing money, not on the deductions, but you're losing money on the mileage. You're losing money on the things that aren't getting receipts. Like, there's so many little parts. So when we are using systems, I've had some people that will say, oh, that sounds like a big word, but that is really just what platform, what apps, how do you do what you do? How do you serve your client? How do you help with informing your team members? How do you market to people? Like, all of those things are intertwined to each other. And it's until we take time to think about it, then it won't always make sense. So like, when I'm helping people, I set up their system. I am a certified HoneyBook Pro. So I do HoneyBook, but I also get that everyone HoneyBook may not be the best fit, and depending on where someone's located, it might not be, the right fit as well for them. But ultimately, my biggest thing is like finding what is going to work. How do you lighten your load? How do you rinse and repeat what you do? And how do you do it in a way that you're not confusing your client or confusing your team members? Because sometimes in our industry, why they don't want to hire people is like, I still have to do everything. But I'm like, how would anyone know what they need to do when you really don't know what you do? And then you want them to have ESP and know how to write the email just like you, but then you don't really have an email. Like, this is the madness I hear. And I'm like, so you pretty much are setting people up to fail, and you get mad at them because they do fail. And then you're just like, well, I'm not going to hire them anyway because I'm just going to do a mess. Like, these are the conversations I have with people. And I'm like, it sounds insane.
Yeah, it's crazy because I've seen this play out again and again. I've seen this play out in my business at the very beginning. And we hit some of those initial roadblocks back when we had a staffing company. And it is funny because you start to realize you end up losing out on business. You make it more complicated for yourself. And the buyers of today's services, I mean, there is a new generation who is buying, who is tech savvy, who is expecting. And I think 4 or 5 years ago, pre-pandemic even, let's say, we could get away with only taking checks or, sending out those 10-page PDFs or things like that. But everyone knows, like, everyone's opening things on phones. It's got to be mobile friendly. You've got to be using systems that people can access mobile. So I just want to get a little more clarity before we move on. So if I were to hire you to come into my business, are you actually coming in and setting up some of those systems for me and kind of getting me set up with that right CRM or that bookkeeping software and kind of maybe even recommending like a tech stack? Is that what I hear you say?
Yeah. So I work with people in different aspects. So like sometimes like with being a HoneyBook Pro, like people come to me and they just want me to audit. Then I have some people that come to me because I've been working with some that are going more in the franchise route. So we're thinking about like, how do we make this rinse and repeat? So if you're doing franchise, that you're setting up your franchisees in a successful way. Because again, like some people, they have like you're saying, like at different levels of your business, what works may not make the most amount of sense now when you're duplicating or expanding into different markets. So some people, they'll just come to me and they're like, hey, I just need to audit. I need to have like a strategy session, something to just someone to talk to, because again, there's not a lot of people in my space that have actually worked in it. There's a lot of different coaches that are out there, and there's people, but again, they don't understand that we have real cost. Like I have to know how much it's going to cost to have my caterers do or my DJs to be there. Like I have real costs that are on my insurance. Like these are just things that really don't apply to other service-based businesses. So I figure out where's the gaps. And then I either do the stuff myself, set it up myself, or for certain things that I'm not the strongest as, like I love QuickBooks, but am I a QuickBook expert? No, I do have a partnership with someone that does QuickBooks. So I always tell people, especially when they're asking me a lot of questions about that stuff, I'm like, hey, reach out to Michelle and she'll help you. I was like, but you need to do this ASAP and figure this out so that you're not complaining about taxes, because taxes are what they are. So you just have to protect your business the best way you can with collecting the information where you need to collect it.
Yeah, we literally just had someone on. It was right after tax day, and we just had someone on to talk about that, because that's again one of those things where you get to tax season, that 30 days or 60 days. Now you're trying to, like you said, figure out mileage, figure out some of these things because you don't have the receipts, because you don't have the system in place. So yeah, 100%. Okay, so I have a question for you. You're doing all this work with systems. Do you have like a favorite tech stack that you like using? I know you said HoneyBook, but like in terms of, HoneyBook, maybe social media apps, like what are your kind of go-to apps that you recommend people use?
Yeah. So of course I use HoneyBook. I've been a QuickBook user now. I don't know, well over 10 years at this point. I have started recently using Metrical, and it's Metricol, and it's for social media posting. Because of course, like I run two businesses, still my event business and then my consulting. So with Metrical, it allows for you to post to all the different platforms that you need to post on and schedule it. So I do have an assistant. So I just come up with the words and things like that. And she knows the dates and she picks the time based off of what the app says it's available. So I love Metrical for that. And then I also use Zapier because I always say that even for someone like myself, when you have human behavior in it, mistakes can happen and sometimes they will happen. So I'm always thinking about how can we reduce human intervention in certain parts of our business so that we are making sure those mistakes do not occur. Email marketing has been a part of my business now for a very long time, my event business. So I always tell people find what platform makes sense for you. I deal with corporate clients in my event business. So MailChimp, I know people go for, but MailChimp does not work well for corporate clients because it will just get in those spam blocks. It got to the point at one point, my clients were like, hey, Jesse, are you even sending us emails anymore? And I was like, that's not good. When people are used to seeing emails, but because I switched that one platform, I immediately was going to spam blocks. So you're going to, for anyone that's hearing this, there's a bunch of different apps that are going to be out there. It's one, knowing your clients. It's understanding where do they really receive information, because even off a platform like Metrical, you can be posting all day on Instagram, but if you're getting most of your leads from Google, Google, would it make more sense to do ads on Google than on Instagram? But if we don't have anything that's keeping track of all this, we can be throwing all this money into the metaverse when you could have been putting it into Google AdSense and got a better return than what you would get on Meta. So it's just finding where your people are, where you're getting them. So I love using those. And then I also use Asana for a lot of our internal stuff. So like our content calendar, project management type stuff. So those are the main ones that I'm probably touching on a daily basis.
Hey friends, Joanthan here, and I wanted to share about Common Sense Events consulting packages. If you are a venue owner and you're struggling with your marketing, your sales, your operations, or maybe there's just, you're new to the industry and you want to really have a leg up and get a jump start on getting your business going and not make a lot of the mistakes that oftentimes people make, the mistakes that we made, frankly, when we first started, we would love to chat with you and see if there's a way that we can serve you. Our team has experience working with over 10 venues all across the United States, doing consulting. We've hosted hundreds and hundreds of weddings at this point, and we know what it takes to be successful. If this sounds interesting to you, we would love to chat with you. You can either reach out by filling out the link in the description of the video or podcast, or you can just email us at venues@cseventservices.com, and we would love to chat with you and see if there's a way that we can serve you. All right, back to the show. That's huge. That's so valuable for people to hear. We love Asana. We use that as well. It's so funny that you said that about the marketing, because it's 100% true. Like if you don't know, how do you know how to spend your marketing dollars? Like if you don't have some sort of way to figure out the conversions, and even that's my bone to pick with a lot of these different platforms at some points, because you may not know, like even HoneyBook, love them and improved so much over the years.
Yeah.
Really narrowing down, like, okay, I put $100 in. What did I get out? I put $1,000 in, and then you get to the point where you get 3 months in, you're like, we've been doing this, but I don't know if it's working or not,
Mm-hmm. But then also tracking it too, like it's good that you're even thinking to track it, but most of us don't even think to do that. And then I'm like, okay, you want more, but what is more? And then where is more, or what's your conversion rate? Like all of those things, like you want to be able to have a centralized place that you're keeping track of that data. It might not make sense, especially for right now, to do it weekly, but maybe once a month, just keeping track of what are the things that I'm doing and what results come from it. Because if you don't know that, then it's going to feel like I'm doing a lot. The nature of our human flesh is to think that we're doing a lot. And then when I talk to someone about what a lot is, I'm like, oh, so did you reach out to let's say they do a DJ, and I'm like, have you reached out to 5 venues to see about being on their list? Well, I'm like, you didn't even do the 10 to get the average of 1 to 2. So you got exactly what you should have gotten. Zero. Like you have to know what you're doing, how it's producing results. So then it takes you away from feeling like nothing's working and puts you into the space of, even if your conversion rate is 30% when you get new leads, you can work on making it better. But also if you're trying to get more clients, if you know your conversion rate is 30% and people are coming from this one place, how do you get more people to come in so that you can convert that 30%? But if we don't know this information, this is where, again, it takes us from being a hobbyist to a business owner. You have to know the data in your business so that you can move accordingly. And that's where tech comes into play.
I love that you said that about, you didn't even do the work to get the result you're looking for. So many times, I'll ask our team, they'll say, I got some feedback. A lot of people just don't like, X, Y, and Z. I think we need to change something up. And I'm like, well, how many people did you talk to? Well, I don't know, a few. And then it's like, okay, well, show me where they said that. It turns out it's one person. You know what I mean? Yeah. We're getting ready to change our entire strategy because one person, and it was one person out of the 3 people that you talked to. So it's like, that's not a big sample size. Like, don't go change your business over one person's opinion just because they didn't like it.
100%. 100%. And I think that too is because it's not a conversation. And that's probably been the biggest challenge I've had with the consulting side, is that, again, there's not a lot of conversation that people understand about business. It's too much about the theatrics of being an entrepreneur than actually being a business owner. And when I talk about the data and I talk about the importance of knowing this information and understanding it, it almost feels like, well, is that important? I'm just going to keep putting reels out. Okay, cool. And it's just like, then let me just keep running my business then. And well, it's something that I feel that for a lot of us in our business, if we leaned into it, we'll have the success we really want without sacrificing our well-being, our peace of mind, or the quality of life that we have. But it takes time to learn these things, or hiring someone to help you with navigating so that you understand what you need to keep track of. Because even when I talk to people in our industry about email marketing, they're like, but why do I need to do it? I'm like, but why wouldn't you do it? And the thing is that you're thinking of target email marketing. You're not target. And you'll have more unsubscribes than people that subscribe. I'm like, but if you were intentional about emails, at least once a month, or if you were using a CRM system where you can pull a report of who worked with you last holiday party season so that you can send out an email in August to those people that either reached out to you or those that did not book you, and the ones that did book you with intentional email campaigns to say, hey, you reached out to us last year for holidays, and we just want to see, what were some of the things you were looking for with X, Y, and Z? Or the people that booked you last year be like, hey, it was great working with you last holiday season and because you're a VIP. But if we don't have any of this data, and then you come to me saying, I want more clients, you're automatically going to just make me want to scream. Because it's like, how can I help you help yourself when you don't have anything for me to do? And that's where it makes business harder, because we're like, I want more clients, but you don't have any way to actually keep people in your funnel or anything that's organized in a way that you keep people engaged. So you're not always having to churn, because that's what I find happens in our industry, is because there's no containers, there's no outreach, there's none of that kind of stuff, that we're just churning through people. Even for me, I often say, like, some of my content that I get in the consulting side is because of how people traumatize me in my event business side. When I'm trying to find people and it's taking them 2 weeks. Like, I had someone respond to me last week for some request I sent in January. And for anyone who's watching this, listen to this recording, it's now the end of April. And they reached out, hey, sorry, this fell through the cracks. January, 4 months. I'm like, well, I reached out to you for something in February. Thanks for responding. Like, it's baffling for someone who actively looks for partners for my corporate event planning company, and I am often disappointed.
Yeah. the interesting thing on that, so we have 2 gals in our office who are planning weddings right now, and they are in our business. So they see we're trying to follow up with people within 5-10 minutes. We're also human, we also have lives. We've got families and all that other stuff going on, pets and things we need to do with our lives, travel, whatever else. And we're using systems so that we can, it feels maybe like we're a little omnipresent because we try to use automations as intelligently as we can and things like that. But, so they experience that inside our business. Then they go to do their own, like, I'm going to look for a florist for my wedding.
Yes.
And you're 100% right. They don't get a response for a week, maybe 3 weeks. Yeah. And then someone follows back up. It's interesting because on the flip side of that, people are more flexible with their wedding and event planning than ever before. So they might discontinue planning and pick it up later. If you in your mind just followed up with them once or twice and then left them and forgot about them, and you don't have those systems, like you said, to know who's contacted you, like HoneyBook or like any of those, and they're not in that bucket, you're missing out on business when they're trying to plan their event after taking a 30-day break, Yep,
100%. And the thing is that if you are an event service provider, you do want to have something that's helping to re-engage people. Like every year, I'm having to find someone that can do holiday decor. Why? Because no one that does holiday decor ever they don't do any follow-up. They don't reach out, even if I don't book them. Like, still, I would think you'll want to reach out because of the nature of my event business. You might want to send me a message in September like, hey, I know we didn't get the chance to work with you, but it's me having to chase after them. And to be honest, a normal person isn't going to chase you. And I am borderline definitely not going to chase you. So if I'd rather look for someone new or reach out to some people in my circle to give me a recommendation. So again, this is where people are losing out on money because they're not using systems, because they don't have any way to keep in contact with people. So it's one of those things that can be extremely exhausting. And then that's where I don't think that people understand how that impacts why their business isn't growing.
I love it. For someone who's listening to this, maybe they're just in the very beginning of their event business journey, without throwing them into all of the apps all at once. Where would you start? Like, what's a first, second, third in terms of some systems that you would start dabbling with?
The first one that the first 3 for anyone, even if you're brand new, because they, like I've mentioned before, they all are powerful. One, of course, is QuickBooks. I don't care if you're only using it once a month. You're going to write it off at the end of the year anyway. And that's the biggest thing people complain about is I'm paying too much in taxes. Well, go ahead and eat that $20 so that at the end of the year, you get it back. Like, I don't care how frequent you're using it. It's one of those things that I think is extremely important so that you're getting paid. The second one is finding a CRM platform that is going to help you, almost mandatory. Because again, if someone's trying to present, and again, too, I think what's to keep in mind, to me, it's not about how new you're in business, it's about who you serve. Like if you're trying to, I know that we're in this world where everyone wants to charge like $10,000 for doing nothing. However, if you go and send me to a Google form or I've had people, like I had someone last holiday season who canceled out on a holiday party the day before because she thought I was stiffing her because she didn't have good communication. I pay all my people through ACH because for those of you that are listening that don't know, you can't send a bunch of money through platforms because they think you're money laundering. So that's why it has, for most places, $5,000 that you can send out. So a way that I've navigated around paying vendors when they're working with me is I have ACH set up through my bank. So it's free for them. I just have a nominal fee so that they can get their money and it goes in their bank account. So I paid her thinking that it went through, but she never told me it didn't go through. So she decides the day of, and that tells me she never went grocery shopping, because if she went grocery shopping, she would have saw it through. So the day of, I wake up to a message saying, no, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to cancel. Because she wanted me to pay her through Cash App. Nothing's giving you a red flag for you to ask me to pay you $2,200 through Cash App. You think I am about to, as a business owner, send you $2,200 through Cash App? No, I am not going to. You need to send me an invoice. You need to send me something that if something goes wrong, that I know that I'm covered. But she didn't have any of that. So this is why you can use a platform that is a client management system. So you can at least invoice, so that you can at least show up professionally, so that you're not feeling like people are nickel and diming you. So this is why you need to have a CRM, because you'll find that if you don't present yourself professionally, for some people, they won't feel comfortable paying you a certain invoice because you're giving them not high level when you're trying to charge them premium pricing. So that's where I think you need to have that. And then, of course, the third one is email marketing. That's how you grow the list. Like, you want it to, everyone starts at 0. And most of us, all we need is 10% of the people that are on our email list to purchase from us so that we can re-engage, so they can send us referrals. We don't need hundreds of people. Most of us don't need hundreds of clients. So you do want to engage people. So even if someone's a no right now, they can be a guest in the future, or they can at least send you someone. But if we're not email marketing, they won't see you on Instagram. I'm sorry. Like, for some reason, a good amount of people I haven't even seen on my Instagram for a year. And I'm like, oh my gosh, where you been? So why would I want to do that with my business? I need to have people able to get my information without having to be reliant on the algorithm. So those are the 3 main apps for very valuable reasons, because you need to keep track of your taxes. Until, even if you don't understand all the things, you do need to keep track of them. And the more complex, well, let's say complex, the more unorganized you are when you have your taxes, the more the CPA will charge you to do it. So it pays you again to just pay the $20, because if you send someone a duffel bag of receipts, they're going to charge you.
It's so true. I did that. So it's so funny. About 7 years ago, when we switched from doing staffing to doing venue management, we had a CPA. He's my friend from college, went to college with them. And he came in and we just said, hey man, we're switching over. We did this. Now we made all this money, but we didn't use the systems early on. We just and it was rough. And he had to charge us a lot of money. He's like, hey man, you got to start using these systems, because now I got to dig through all of this stuff. We didn't have a bookkeeper. We weren't doing any, monthly reconciliations or anything like that. And so it was bad. And it only took us one time of getting slapped like that. We were like, never again. And but you don't, and that's why this podcast, that's why listening to you, getting some of those systems set up front is what folks really need to do, because then you can avoid paying the dummy tax,
100%. And I think too, because we don't hear a lot about that, and we see that our counterparts aren't doing those things. And, again, it's just people don't know what they don't know. And I find that there's a lot of not knowing, unfortunately, and it costs us all. And then we sit here and say, well, that's just something stupid, or I'm not going to put time, or they'll think I need to do it once I get bigger, but not realize that they're stretching out the long suffering when it's not necessary.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. Jesse, I really appreciate you just doing what you do, because one business at a time, making these changes, it makes our industry better. And if our industry gets better, people have better experiences. And also, just like other industries, like you said, certain business practices that are very commonplace in other industries, we just don't have them. And so it's easy to not take our industry as seriously as others. And so I love what you're doing. So if someone is listening to this right now and they want to work with you, they want to reach out, they're more curious on what you're doing, what's the best way for them to contact you?
So right now, there's 2 different ways. I mean, of course, through all the social platforms, but I did recently do a webinar or a masterclass on how to create a vendor management system, because we often think about what we want our clients to go through, but then we're letting our vendors fight for their lives to work with us. So if you do want to learn about the structure around managing vendors, if you're an event planner, venue, or even if you're someone that collaborates with different people underneath your business umbrella, it's something that I highly recommend for people to download. It's free. And a lot of people got a lot of value from that. The second way is that I do have consultations that people are able to sign up for. Where if you wanted to just find out where I can support you, because again, this is a lot of information. I get that. And there's a lot of unawareness about where we are in our business. So if you just need to talk to someone to figure out how I can support you and where you have holes, and then that's something we can do. And I'll make sure I'll give a link for that too.
That's super awesome. Well, we're going to have links to all of that in the description, and you're going to pass along that link for the webinar as well?
Yeah.
Okay,
yes.
Amazing. So we'll have that down in the description on YouTube if you're watching, or all the podcast platforms if you're listening. Jesse, thanks so much for coming on today. This was really great.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thank you so very much again for that. I really coined I love talking about the unsexy. Everybody wants to learn about how to do the balloons and the color coordination, but how do you get paid? So that you can stop asking people to send you $2,200 in Cash App. I need for that to stop.
No $2,200 on Cash App. No, never again. Never. I love it. Awesome. Well, thanks so much again. This was great. We'll talk soon.
That's it.
Pardon the interruption. I wanted to take a moment and share with you about WEVA. WEVA stands for Wedding and Event Venue Association, and it is a professional association custom built for venue owners and operators. We felt like there was a lack of resources, community, education, and networking available specifically for our industry. And so we recently started this association, and it's been growing by the day. We would love to extend an invite to you, so please click the link in the description or wherever you're watching this video, and we would love to welcome you into the community.